So today I will be talking about how Kavad, with respect to orality, serves as an indicator of ethnicity in case of the Kavadiya Bhats. I have conducted this research as a speaking archaeologically exclusive project. So Speaking Archaeologically is an archaeological education group based in India. This organization focuses on documentation of neglected and forgotten archaeological sites, object analysis, and rescue archaeology. So, Kavad is defined as kavat, kapat, or kivad, meaning a half door or a panel of door. We find a lot of indirect references to Kavad in various primary texts, such as the Tariq-e-Firoz-Shahi and the Ain-e-Akbari. A parallel temple box similar to Kavad is found in some parts of West Bengal, which might be due to the migration of the communities involved in it, which we will discuss further here. The Kavad is a portable shrine where the stories from the epics of Mahabharata, Ramayana, Purans, caste genealogies, and folk tradition are narrated. The state of Rajasthan in India has a body of myths and stories which serve as a medium for evolving, storing, and then transmitting knowledge, art, and ideas from one generation to the other. They are being recited on both religious and secular occasions in some parts of Rajasthan. This tradition of narrating the stories is called as Kavad Banchana or Kavad Katha, which is a 400-year-old tradition still alive in some parts of Rajasthan. As like several oral traditions in India, its origin is associated with mythology. It is integrally associated with the three communities, that of the Suthars, who are the carpenters who make the Kavad boxes, the Kavadiya Bhats, who recite the stories, and the Jajmaans, who are the patrons. The Kavad imparts each community involved in it with an identity that reaches back into time and space. My research attempts to highlight the community of Kavadiya Bhats in order to understand the ethnicity of this community in oral tradition of Kavad Bhatsna. It also discusses about how this community and oral tradition has been affected by economic factors and thus led to the homogenization of stories and themes on it. Kavad is suffering in modern age due to lack of patrons and economic support, lack of audience, and the decreased popularity of the old stories of epics and Purans. In current times of economic difficulties and struggle, the Kavadiyas are adopting Kavats to modern stories, education, and social issues. They are now making wooden dolls and furniture to meet their economic needs. The Kavadiyas have left their villages in search of work and other opportunities in other states. As the newer generation of the Kavadiyas are hesitant to continue the family procession, this oral tradition is losing its roots. Now, going theoretically, ethnicity refers to an ethnic group which shares similar values and norms defined by things such as language, geography, religion, or race. Ethnicity depicts people symbolically as bearers of a certain cultural identity. Orality can orient archaeological studies to focus on issues relevant to local communities involved in the oral tradition and can provide a social context for material remains that is unobtainable in archaeological investigations by identifying the symbolic, social, and ideological values. The Kavadiya has the responsibility of sharing and transmitting a story orally without use of text to bring the story to life only through the paintings depicted on the Kavad. It helps in ascertaining a reflection of rich tradition transmitted through generations and also helps in portraying the cognitive representation of socio-cultural and religious development through history, which serves as an important context for origination. The Kavadiya Bhats are originally from the regions of Marwar and Mewar in Rajasthan. They take these Kavats from one region to another with respect to the place where their patrons reside. Each Kavadiya had 30 to 50 patrons who belonged to different parts in Rajasthan. Hence, the Kavadiya Bhats are a semi-nomadic community, and the aspect of the movement is intrinsic to the concept of the traveling portable shrine of Kavad. They are like the priest of the Kavad who tell the stories of local heroes along with the stories from epics and receives donation in return. It is believed that audience becomes the pilgrims as they listen to the Kavadiyas who take them on a journey through time and space. The importance of Kavad lies in understanding the interrelation between the migration and identity in the society. The movement of the Kavadiya Bhat community, their migration and settlement patterns, as well as the movement of ideas and stories which are intrinsic to Kavad storytelling, highlights the cultural transactions which took place in the past. The performative and participatory function of Kavad Banchana delivers an indigenous mystery of human existence. The material culture, such as Kavad, is understood as an active constitutor of human culture, exerting its own influence on human society. The significance of intangible cultural heritage is not limited to cultural manifestation itself, but is rather the knowledge and skills that is permitted and being transferred from one generation to the next. Thus, safeguarding an intangible cultural heritage such as Kavad is extremely important. Since no strict regulations can be imposed on the Kavadiyas, in order to carry on the tradition of Kavad Bachana, the intangible cultural heritage and the communities linked with it are under continuous threat of dying out. Hence, the recording, documentation, and conserving these traditions is the need of time. I had the opportunity to interview Mr. Dwarka Prasad Jangid, who gave me insights into the current state of the tradition in Rajasthan. He is currently working with various institutions like the Indian Institution of Crafts and Design, the Dastari Hat Samiti, to keep the tradition alive and relevant. The traditional kavats are now getting replaced by the kavats on social issues such as Meena Ki Kahani, which is on girl child education, the preservation measures of COVID-19 pandemic, education purposes, etc. It is important to take the stories that are narrated by the Kavadiyas as a serious alternative version to interpret the past and thus include them as equally important alternatives in a presentation to the public and education programs. When its value is being recognized, orality might become a crucial aspect of archaeological research, hereby making it necessary to include local communities who are still practicing these oral traditions. The genealogies maintained by the Kavadiyas is an important source to study the regional history of Rajasthan. Due to the loss of patronage and incentive within the communities, a digitized platform must be provided to conserve this tradition. The Kavadiya Bhats emerged as a community group having expertise in their art and developed a specific form and style of performance in form of Kavad Bhatsna. By looking at the presentation of historicity through specific characteristics of orality storylines depicted on the Kavad, a new framework of reference is presented for further research combining the aspects of orality and social anthropology. The oral, performative, and participatory forms of these stories reveal a keen understanding of the geographical constraints and ecological specificities that determine the way of life of a region. To elaborate this, the Kavadiyas asked the Suthars, that is the carpenters who make the Kavad boxes, to make Kavats in which they depict through the paintings their journey from a particular region in the country to Rajasthan. At times, this helps us to understand the migration patterns of the community. The stories narrated on the Kavad explore new views and highlights the subtleties of social relations which prevailed in the past in form of stories connected to the genealogies. The interview of Mr. Jangid highlights the perspective of the local community and can be included in archaeological research as a part of multivocal interpretation of the past. Upholding a societal norms and values is sacred affair, especially in Indian society where the religion is the way of life. The oral tradition in form of Kavad Bhajna serve to cater to the demand of preserving this knowledge. People have been always engaged with the past in the process of establishing a meaning in the present and also routinely incorporate objects like Kavad and associate past events into narratives that create and sustain them as a community today. Community archaeology would establish a need to start project with a goal and publicly present the forgotten aspects of this tradition and the role of the communities involved in it. An awareness to safeguard the tradition can be aroused in the minds of the people by involving them in these projects. So to read more about my research, the paper on this will be published soon in Speaking Archaeologically Journal Volume 4. Also, a documentary is released on Speaking Archaeologically YouTube channel. Do have a watch. To conclude my presentation, I'm grateful to Mr. Dwarka Prasad Jangir for giving me an interview and providing the insights of the current state of the tradition in Rajasthan. I'm also thankful to Ms. Shriya Gautam, the founder of Speaking Archaeologically, for her constant guidance and support throughout the project. Lastly, I would like to conclude my presentation with a selected bibliography. Thank you.